The smell of his cologne on her scarf was the final nail in the coffin. A hint of sandalwood and bergamot, the scent I'd bought him for our anniversary, now clinging to the silk I'd gifted my best friend, Elara, just last Christmas. It wasn't just a betrayal. It was a mockery, a punch to the gut that left me breathless. Elara, my confidant, the sister I chose, had been playing me for a fool. And now, she was about to find out that the pawn she thought she was moving was actually the queen, and I'd just said, checkmate. It's funny how you don't see the cracks until the whole wall is crumbling down. For months, I'd been walking on eggshells in my own home, tiptoeing around a silent, invisible landmine. My husband, Marcus, had become an expert at the art of being there but not being present. His late nights at the office, once a rare occurrence, became his new normal. Project deadline, he'd say, his eyes never quite meeting mine, the words a hollow echo in our once vibrant home. His phone, a tether to his secret life, was now guarded with the ferocity of a dragon protecting its gold. It was a change so gradual, so insidious, that I almost convinced myself I was imagining it. But my best friend, Elara, was there to validate every fear. She'd arrive with a bottle of my favorite Sauvignon Blanc, her face a mask of practiced concern. "He's definitely seeing someone, Ava," she'd whisper, her hand gripping mine with a strength that felt both reassuring and something else, something I couldn't quite name. She was the one who cataloged every red flag, every late night, every secretive text message. She'd listen to me cry, offering a shoulder I thought I could lean on. "You deserve the truth," she'd say, her mantra a constant drumbeat in my head. It was Elara who had planted the idea of a private investigator. "My friend used this guy, Mr. Davies," she said, scrolling through her phone. "He's discreet, efficient. You need a professional, Ava. You need proof." Looking back, I can almost see the glint in her eye, the subtle twist of her lips as she watched me fall deeper into her trap. I was a puppet, and she was pulling the strings, orchestrating the whole miserable play. So, I made the call. I gave Mr. Davies Marcus's photo, our address, and a check that left a significant dent in our savings. The private investigation became my secret. A whisper of hope that I could finally put a name to the ghost haunting my marriage. All the while, Elara was my constant companion. She'd text me every morning. "Any news?" She'd come over in the evenings, bringing comfort food and endless gossip to distract me from the gnawing anxiety. She was my rock, or so I thought, in a sea of despair. The first report from Mr. Davies was a single email. Not the grainy photo of an anonymous mistress I'd braced myself for, but a snapshot of Marcus, laughing, getting into a car with Elara. The betrayal wasn't a stranger's face. It was the face of the woman who held my hand as I cried. The woman who told me I was strong. The woman who had been poisoning my marriage from the inside out. My world didn't just shatter. It reconfigured itself into a much darker, sharper reality. The grief was replaced with a cold, calculated rage. I wasn't just a victim anymore. I was a soldier who had just been given the map of her enemy's fortress. The game had just begun, and this time, I was playing to win. The moment I saw that photo, a seismic shift occurred in my mind. Every memory, every conversation, every shared secret with Elara was replayed, but this time with a horrifying new context. The kind of clarity that makes you feel physically ill. The old footage in my brain was a lie, replaced by a darker, truer version of events. Flashback. 3 months ago. I remember telling Elara about my worry. "He barely looks at me anymore. I feel invisible." She had patted my hand, her expression of deep sympathy. "Oh, honey, don't say that. You're beautiful. He's just under pressure. But men have needs, you know. He's probably just distracted." Distracted, I had repeated, feeling a pang of inadequacy. What I heard then was concern. What I hear now is a thinly veiled excuse, a seed of doubt planted with malicious intent. Flashback. 6 weeks ago, I found a crumpled receipt from a high-end jewelry store in Marcus's car, a receipt for an expensive pair of earrings I hadn't received. I'd shown it to Elara, my hands shaking. I said it was for a client's wife, I whispered, desperate for a shred of a plausible explanation. Elara had laughed, a short, sharp sound. A client's wife? Ava, please. A man who buys expensive jewelry for a client's wife is not a good man. That's a man who's hiding something. Her words were poison. She hadn't just been helping me, she had been actively dismantling my trust in my husband, brick by brick, so she could replace it with her own twisted version of reality. She wasn't my confidant, she was the architect of my marital destruction. Flashback. 2 weeks ago. I'd gone to her with a final, desperate plea. I'm going to confront him, Ava. I can't live like this anymore. She had grabbed my arm, her grip surprisingly strong. No, Ava, don't be impulsive. You don't have proof. You can't just accuse him. You'll just push him away. Let me help you get the evidence. We'll nail him together. Nail him together. The phrase echoed in my head, a grotesque parody of our friendship. She wasn't helping me. She was a stage manager, making sure I didn't step on stage until she had everything in place for her grand finale. She was playing both sides, a double agent in the war for my life. I didn't confront them. I held on to the photo, the evidence, and let the rage ferment into a cold, hard resolve. I continued the charade of the broken wife, calling Elara, crying, and confessing my deepest insecurities. My tears weren't for my marriage anymore. They were for the lost friendship, for the woman I thought I knew. I was no longer an unsuspecting wife. I was a detective in my own life, and the case was airtight. The days that followed were a surreal performance. I became an actress in a play I hadn't auditioned for, but was now determined to star in. My role was simple: the heartbroken, clueless wife. Elara's role was the concerned, loyal best friend. Marcus's was the distant, guilt-filled husband. We were all on the same stage, but I was the only one who knew all the lines. I kept Mr. Davies on the clock. The reports started to come in with a chilling regularity, each one a new chapter in their deceitful romance. He documented their secret lunches at a charming bistro downtown, the kind of place they'd go to pretend they were a real couple. He sent me grainy photos of them holding hands, their heads close together in whispered conversation, a sickening intimacy I had once shared with Marcus. The photos were like daggers, each one twisting a little deeper, but they also fueled my resolve. Mr. Davies's recordings, however, were the real gut punch. I'd listen to them on my headphones late at night, curled up on the couch, the sound of my own silent sobs lost in the silence of the house. I heard Elara's voice, not the soothing, sympathetic tone I was used to, but a hard, mocking edge I had never heard before. She's such a mess, Marcus. She actually believes me when I tell her you're just working late. It's almost too easy. Be careful, Elara. She's not stupid. She's a pushover. She trusts me with her life, so she never suspects me. I'm her best friend. The words were a brutal revelation. It wasn't just a simple affair. This was a long, cruel campaign of manipulation. Elara hadn't just stolen my husband, she had stolen my sense of reality, my self-worth, and my faith in friendship. She had convinced me that I was weak and clueless, all while she was the one pulling the strings. My rage solidified into a cold, burning purpose. I was going to turn her own game against her. I started to subtly change things. I began journaling again, not just to vent, but to meticulously document their betrayal. I created a timeline, cross-referencing Mr. Davies's reports with my own memories. I began talking to a lawyer, a fierce, no-nonsense woman named Sandra, whom I trusted implicitly. The conversations were clinical, strategic. Sandra advised me on asset division, on gathering evidence for emotional distress, on protecting myself from the impending legal storm. I was no longer a victim. I was a strategist. I continued to call Elara, my voice trembling with a well-practiced despair. I don't know what to do, Elara. I feel so lost. Just hold on, Ava. I'm here for you. We'll get through this together. The irony was a bitter taste in my mouth. She was right. We would get through this together. She just didn't know what the "this" was. The final piece of the puzzle fell into place with a single text message. It wasn't an accident. It was a test. I used Marcus's phone while he was in the shower, sending a vague text to a contact I had named Elara. "Can't wait to see you tonight, M." Her reply, moments later, came from a different number. "I can't wait either. Just be careful. Ava is getting suspicious." The burner phone. The final confirmation. That night, as Marcus left for his late night at the office, I put my plan into motion. I called my lawyer, Sandra, who confirmed she'd be on standby. Then I called Elara, my voice tight with what she would perceive as panic. "I can't do this anymore, Lara. I'm going to tell him I know everything. I'm leaving him tonight." Her reaction was immediate, a sharp intake of breath on the other end of the line. "No, Ava, don't do that. Wait. You need to think this through. You need a plan." "My plan is to get the truth out. I'm done with secrets." I could hear her scrambling, the rustle of clothes, the sound of her car keys jingling. She was going to him. She was going to warn him. My trap was sprung. I'd arranged for a few of my oldest, most trusted friends to be at my house. They were waiting in the guest bedroom, a silent, moral support system. I had told them everything, and their shock and outrage were a validation I desperately needed. They were my secret army. At 9:30 p.m., the doorbell rang. It wasn't Marcus. It was Elara, her face a flush mess of panic and misplaced concern. "Ava, what are you doing? I thought you were leaving," she exclaimed, her eyes darting around the living room, searching for signs of Marcus. "I was," I said, my voice eerily calm. But then I thought, why should I leave? It's my home. Why should I be the one to go? And that's when Marcus walked in. He stopped dead in his tracks, his eyes wide with surprise and fear as he saw Elara. "Elara? What are you doing here?" he stammered, his voice a pathetic squeak. "I came to check on Ava." "And I'm so glad you did, because now I don't have to tell you individually. I can tell you both at once. I know." The color drained from both of their faces. Marcus's jaw went slack. Elara's eyes, those eyes that had feigned so much sympathy, now held a raw, primal fear. "I know everything," I continued, my voice gaining strength. "I know about the private investigator. I know about the hotel rooms. I know about the burner phone, Elara. And I know about the lies. I know about the woman he's been cheating with." I paused for a moment, letting the silence hang heavy in the air. Their shame was a symphony. I walked over to the TV stand where I had a small, inconspicuous briefcase. I opened it and pulled out the manila folder from Mr. Davies. I slid it across the coffee table, the photos of them laughing and holding hands on top. I have the photos, the audio recordings, and the bank statements. My lawyer, Sandra, has everything. And by the way, I also have the locks changed. The only way you're getting in is if I let you in. But I won't. I looked at Elara, her face a mask of shock and horror. She had played me for a fool, but she had underestimated the fool, and now she was about to learn that the pawn she thought she was moving was a queen, and I had just said checkmate. The look on their faces was the most beautiful victory I had ever known, and I knew that from this day forward, I was no longer a victim. I was the survivor, and I was going to be just fine.